Hi, I'm Garrett Simmons.
And I'm Greg Price.
Welcome to another edition of Sports from the Stool. Today we're going to discuss the Canadian Olympic team's game last night against Team Switzerland, the powerhouse team. I guess the Swiss weren't all that neutral last night. They took it to us at points in that game. You know, I thought that was going to be a game where they were just going to lay back and wait for us to make a mistake, but they actually took it to us at points in that game.
Well, I gotta say, you gotta give credit to them. You know, it's not necessarily, I can point a few things that Canada did wrong, but you gotta give them full marks. I mean, how aggressive they were, and I would almost say that they laid out more big hits than we did. So, I mean, just give them full credit for a total team effort.
Yeah, for a team of no-namers, plus, you know, Lucas Abiza, you know, a junior player who played for the Hurricanes last year. I mean, just a bunch of, from what I understand, a bunch of guys just thrown together, same as Team Canada, but with obviously way less talent. I mean, they, unless the world knows something that I don't, it didn't look like it was going to be an overly strong team, but I guess they showed us.
From what I heard, just two players with NHL experience, and of course, one of them being, of course, Jonas Hiller from the Anaheim Ducks, and it just shows you just. Yeah. Just with a short tournament like this, that all you need is a hot goalie, and I think he stopped 40-something shots. But in my opinion, I think that's one of the things that Canada didn't do enough of is shoot, which is surprisingly when you counter how many shots they did. But I counted at least a half a dozen shots, or half a dozen instances where they're in the low post there, low slot there, and all of a sudden they pass it off. For some reason, I don't know. It just seems like they're just trying to be too pretty.
It seems like everyone's trying to be too nice. No one wants to be the guy who's shooting and not passing. And I guess that happens in a collection of stars that, you know, no one wants to take charge, and everyone's kind of trying to play the perfect team game and try to make a five-point passing play to set up a goal. I mean, it's not going to happen all the time. I mean, even when you're playing a team like the Swiss, they're not bad hockey players. I mean, you can't expect a perfect goal every single time out there. Sometimes you gotta dump the puck in, cycle it around, throw the puck on net, get a cheap goal, get an ugly rebound, and just score a goal for crying out loud.
Well, that's another thing. I think that's what they sort of went back to what they did against Norway in that first period in their first game, is that they sort of being too pretty, and then all of a sudden, you know, they started crashing the net and doing things like that. I don't know. I mean, we're not at a point here where it's absolute panic mode, but the game did make me a little bit uneasy. But I guess it just goes to show you with the Russians losing in their shootout game later that night, that maybe we're underestimating the rest of the field here. Yeah,
and you know, the Americans had a tough time with Switzerland too. They only beat them 3-1. I mean, that was a tight game too. So I mean, you can't underestimate anyone in this tournament. I mean, even Canada, we have the best players in the world. We have the most depth in the world. But in a tournament like this, where, you know, in any given game, a goalie can get hot and stone you, make 50 saves, and, you know, you're in tough. So
what do you think?
It's a tough tournament.
So then, what do you think are the keys for Canada to sort of get over this little bump in the road?
Well, I think they've got to start having some set lines and get some chemistry going. I mean, you have the Sharks line, and they obviously scored 2 goals last night. You got Perry and Getzlaf playing together. But I mean, you look at you know, Nash, Crosby, and Gimlet had a great game in Game 1, and they barely played together in Game 2. You had guys that are playing on all sorts of different lines. And even though these are great world-class players, you got to have a little familiarity. You know, you have to have these guys playing together a little bit. And maybe that's something Hockey Canada has to look at in the future, is having this team picked a year in advance and not wait until the last month, the last week to pick this team. I mean, have this team picked well in advance, have your lines picked well in advance, have the coaches distribute, you know, their game plan early enough, you know, your breakout schemes, your forechecking schemes, and have all this stuff in place early enough to make the team a little more cohesive. That's kind of what I think is the key, but that's just me.
And I was quite surprised that Bergeron didn't quite. It sort of seemed like they were just putting him out there for defensive zone draws, and then
yanking him
off right away. And that was a guy that showed a lot of what you're saying is the sort of dirty type goals and the work in the corners. That was a player that really shined through against Norway. And so I don't know what the you know, easy answer is, but it just shows that with the way that the Swiss was working in the corners and laying out the body, maybe it's as highly skilled players as we have, maybe it needs to get to a little bit more old-time hockey.
Yeah, I mean, you look every year with the World Junior team. I mean, we win that tournament every single year with the team that's not loaded with stars. I mean, all the stars that we have are playing in the NHL. You look at this year's team; we didn't win it. We got to the gold medal game though, and every year it's the same thing. We take a team that's not the most talented team we could take, and we still win. I don't know. Maybe that's the key with this team. Maybe we just have too many stars in this team, and everyone's and maybe too. Maybe they're all nervous. I mean, playing in front of the home crowd in Canada, looked like they're gripping the sticks a little too hard. I mean, we had a lot of scoring chances we didn't convert on that these players would normally convert on. So it's a case of nerves. I don't know, but we'll see what happens on Sunday night. I guess if we lose to the Americans, then you know what's going to break loose. But
well, like I said, I'm not quite ready to hit the absolute panic button here. I just think that, as you said, the lines need to be set a little bit more, and we just got to get maybe a couple of more greasy goals where, like I said, just banging the net, things like that. So I'm not quite at the panic mode quite yet. But anyways,
so I'm sure Steve Eisman and Mr. Babcock will be watching this and will be taking our advice to heart. So so after that, so with that in mind, go Canada, go, and see you soon from the stool.
See you later.